Yesterday we went over our triangle types, so today we're going to be going over our quadrangle types or quadrilateral types. So this is the family of shapes that has 4 sides and 4 angles. So yesterday it was triangles, today it's quadrangles, so that has 4 sides, and there are a bunch of different shapes in this family. So I'm going to go over all of them, and you're going to need to get this stuff typed up into your note sheet so that you have it. Now, this first shape you probably recognize. This is a rectangle. In Spanish, rectangulo. Okay, it's basically the same in English and Spanish. Now, in fact, it makes a lot of sense. In Spanish, ángulo recto is a right angle, and this shape has 4 right angles. So you might even want to go ahead and mark on your note sheet and put 4 little squares in the corners. Okay, so all of the angles are right angles. Now you'll notice on my notes that it has a little star by this because that's its defining characteristic. That is what makes it a rectangle. So anytime you see a 4-sided shape that has 4 right angles, that is a rectangle. So a square is technically part of this rectangle family. Now, what makes this shape different than a square? Well, a square, all of the sides would be the same, but looking at this one, it has 2 long sides and then 2 shorter sides. So the opposite sides, opposite meaning across from, opposite sides are the same, but they don't all have to be the same, okay? So you usually have 2 longs and 2 shorts. Now in this shape, we do have 2 lines of symmetry. You would have a vertical line of symmetry, and you would also have a horizontal line of symmetry, and you would have 2 pairs of parallel lines. Now notice it does not have 4 because this is not a regular shape. It is an irregular shape. Now looking at this next one, it looks kind of like the rectangle, but it looks like someone sat on it and broke it because it doesn't have 4 right angles. It has 2 obtuse angles and 2 acute angles normally. This is what we call a parallelogram. So it's got the word parallel and then ogram. Now the biggest clue for who it is in its name. It starts with that word parallel because this shape is known by its 2 pairs of parallel lines. So looking at the rectangle, which is up above, it also has 2 pairs of parallel lines. So technically, we could also classify it as a parallelogram. Now notice again, the opposite sides are the same. Kind of like in the rectangle, we're going to have 2 long sides typically, and I say typically because it doesn't have to, and 2 short sides. So normally you have 2 acute angles and 2 obtuse angles. Now I say normally because it doesn't have to. The only thing it has to have is these 2 pairs of parallel lines. And this one actually has 0 lines of symmetry. Now moving on to our next shape, we all know this one. This is the square. Okay, now the square has 2 defining characteristics. First of all of the sides have to be equal, and all of the angles are right angles, so they are all equal to each other. So this is actually a regular figure. This is our regular quadrangle. So we could mark all of our sides the same by doing a tally mark, and then we could put a little square into each corner, showing that they are right angles. So this is a regular quadrilateral. The regular triangle would have been the equilateral triangle. Now, because this is regular, it has 4 lines of symmetry. And because it is regular, it will have 2 pairs of parallel lines. So if you're looking back at that parallelogram, the square is part of the parallelogram family because it also has 2 pairs of parallel lines. So our next shape, it looks like someone broke the square. This is called a rhombus. I believe in Spanish it's rombo. And it has 2 pairs of parallel lines, so it is also classified as a parallelogram. And it usually has 2 acute angles and 2 obtuse angles. And I say usually because that it doesn't have to. And this one happens to have 2 lines of symmetry. They are the diagonal lines of symmetry. So there's one going that way, and then there's one coming this way. Now, here is the defining characteristic. All of the sides are equal. Now, all of the angles do not have to be equal, but all of the sides are equal. So that's what makes a rhombus a rhombus. So technically, a square is a rhombus, but this rhombus is not a square because it doesn't have the 4 right angles. But this rhombus could be classified as a parallelogram as well. So a lot of what we're doing is going to be cross-classifying shapes, so seeing which categories they could fit into according to their definitions. So we've got just a couple shapes left. Now, these are the lonely quadrilaterals. This is a trapezoid. I think in Spanish it's trapecio. And the trapezoid is special because it has exactly 1 pair of parallel lines. So all of those quadrangles that we looked at previously had 2 pairs, but this only has 1 pair. The top is parallel to the bottom. Now, parallel doesn't mean they are the same size. So the left and right are not parallel. Parallel just means they will never cross, even if they kept going. Now, we've got 2 different kinds of trapezoids. This trapezoid that you see right here is called an isosceles triangle. Isosceles trapezoid. Oh goodness, can I spell that? Isosceles. I believe I'm spelling this wrong. I don't think it has an S there. I need to go back and look that up. Nope, I spelled it right. Sure is a funny spelling. Okay, so the isosceles trapezoid basically is an isosceles triangle that someone cut the top off of, and it has those 2 sides that are the same. So when you think isosceles, think 2 sides the same, even in a trapezoid. So this one has 2 acute and 2 obtuse angles. Now, the base angles, the one that's on the bottom, are acute, and the 2 top angles are the obtuse angles. Now, the isosceles, okay, the right trapezoid, sorry, I'm filling in these notes. The right trapezoid is the one underneath it, so it looks different. You're like, that's not a trapezoid. Yes, it is, because a trapezoid has exactly 1 pair of parallel lines, and you can see the top and bottom are still parallel here. But this one is called a right trapezoid because, as you can see, it has a couple right angles there, okay? So in the right trapezoid, you're going to have 2 right angles, 1 acute angle, and 1 obtuse angle. Now, the isosceles trapezoid does have a line of symmetry, and the line of symmetry is vertically down the middle, but it does not have a horizontal line of symmetry. Okay, and the right trapezoid doesn't have any symmetry. Okay, but the most important thing to remember about the trapezoid is it has 1 pair of parallel sides. So looking back at all of the shapes that we did earlier, all of the ones on this first page of notes, all of them are parallelograms because they have 2 pairs of parallel sides. But then looking at the ones on the other side, the trapezoids, these are not parallelograms because they have exactly 1 pair of parallel sides.